Hey, what's up, everybody? This is C3 Films, and we are doing an open discussion today. My name is Chris, and this is,
Cheryl.
and we're going to be talking about the Avengers. So, spoiler alert for a movie that is at this point, I want to say 8 years old. And if you haven't seen it, then where have you been for the last 8 years? But no judgments. Spoiler alert, we're going to get right into it. Avengers is amazing. It's an amazing movie. I love it more now than when I first watched it. Cheryl was talking about how she didn't think the movie was that good, and we recorded that segment. And I was like, "No, maybe she's right. Maybe I should sit down and watch this movie, and maybe it's not that good." And you know what? I watched it, and I thought, "Oh my god, this movie is freaking amazing. This movie is perfect. This movie is well, it's not perfect, but it's still freaking amazing." And there's nothing that I don't love about this movie. I'm having a good time. I think it's great. I think it's amazing, and I think that Cheryl is crazy, and that's why I think that the movie is perfect.
I guess I did tell you we can only have 10 minutes to talk about why it's good. But yeah, I do feel like you're judging everyone that's disagreeing with you. And for all of our viewers, please check out our It Wasn't That Good episode of the Avengers, and then come back here, and then you can hear about why we think it was actually pretty good.
We are not contradicting ourselves at all. Okay, this is all fair. It's all fair, but
I'm
there
just
is.
gonna start by saying that when I first saw the movie, I was like, oh, it wasn't that good. I had a lot of problems with it, and that's why we
Mhm.
had that discussion. But I watched it again. For I guess it was the third time now watching it. And okay. But while I was watching it, I was like, you know what? I'm actually having a good time. And I don't know if it's because now I have seen more. I've seen, like, Endgame and everything, all the other Marvel movies and stuff. And in comparison, the original Avengers is much more solid than everything that came after it. I think that's why I appreciate it more now than I did before when I first watched it. Um, that being said, I love Joss Whedon. He is one of my favorite directors, all-time favorite directors, writers, and stuff. Because he always keeps me on my toes, and he does such a good job with the characters, and that's why I was having such a good time because I was like, I really like how the characters are like being introduced and how they're interacting with each other and like the jokes. Oh, the jokes are so good. There are so many like moments in this movie where it was like, I love what just happened, and one of my the top thing that I love the most about this movie was when the Hulk grabs Loki and just like swings him around over and over. That was so awesome. And like I remember it from like if I remembered anything about the Avengers since the first time I watched it, it was that scene.
That's just it. This movie has a lot of crowd pleasing moments like that. So first of all, there's so much of plans and payoffs in this movie, and that's part of the reason why it was so enjoyable. If you go back and watch our Knives Out segment, we talk about something similar about how Knives Out feels like a very satisfying movie because all these elements that are introduced pay off in the end. And Avengers is very much similar in that regard. Like, take the action sequences and stuff out, which are amazing. You have the awesome shot where they're finally all assembled, where it's panning around them, which was a shot that was used to death for like so many years after that. And then you have even that the one take, the one that's made to look like one take, where they're going through the city and you're seeing all the Avengers doing their thing and they're fighting, and Iron Man's going through, and then you go to Hawkeye, and then you go to the Hulk and Thor, and they're all working together. It's another rewarding scene. But the other little things, like in the beginning of the movie, for instance, Coulson is talking about how the woman that he was seeing moved to Portland, the cellist. And later on, when Tony Stark first shows up on the helicarrier, he's talking to Coulson, and he says to Coulson, he's whispering to Coulson, he says, "Just think about it. Maybe we'll take a plane over or something. You know, don't give up on love." And that's it. It's a little line, but and you might not even remember what they're talking about, but it ties back to something earlier done, and it's that's just one section of like how the little details help to bring everything else in the movie together, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many little things, like how, like they're talking about Loki and how he's like a horrible guy and everything, and Thor's like, he is my brother, and then, Black Widow was like, he killed 80 people in 2 days, and he was like,
2 days.
what did I say? 80
No, no,
people
no.
in
80
two
people in
days?
2 days. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then Thor was like, he's adopted. And like even this little thing about like I didn't actually catch it the first two times that I watched the movie. But Iron Man's like, that guy over there is playing Galaga. Like, why can't you guys like, get to work? And then like after he leaves, there's this quick shot of the guy who's like just looking over his shoulder, and then like once everyone leaves, he like turns it back on and he starts playing it again.
I'm surprised you missed that. That was a really big call in the movie theaters when that happened.
Well, because
I'm
I didn't know
surprised I
what
missed that.
Galaga was. That's why.
Oh, I see. All right, that would make sense then.
Yeah, and now I can pause it and be like, what is that?
Right.
Another cool moment that I thought was really funny was when Phil goes to recruit Iron Man, and he's with Pepper,
Pepper.
and then he tries to hand Iron Man the file, and then she takes it from him and trades the champagne glass, and then she trades the file for his champagne glass, and like that kind of stuff. Like those little things are just like they're so goofy and silly and stuff, but then they're all still within their characters, and that's what makes it so entertaining. That like it's just so witty, and that's Joss Whedon right there.
Yeah, the dialogue is actually one of the best parts about this movie because even though I've seen this movie 6 times at this point, it still makes me laugh, especially after seeing it after a couple of years. My last time I saw this movie might have been 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, when like Avengers Endgame was coming out. But like when, for instance, when Tony and Cap are talking while like it's during the scene where Tony is trying to like poke Bruce to try to see if he could make him get like all rage filled, and Cap's walking up, and Cap was within his right. He's saying, "You think this is a joke? What's wrong with you?" And Tony asks, Cap says, "Do you think everything's funny?" And then Tony responds, "I think jokes are." It's like, oh, wow, dude, you're such a jerk. And seeing the two of them, the straight man of Cap being played against Tony's kind of just fly at the handle like personality, it's fun. And Whedon does a good job of making arguments fun to watch. That's one of the cool things when you see that moment when they're all arguing with each other because they find out that that Fury is making weapons and he's lying to them, and everybody's taking a turn at each other. They're all going around. Even Thor, they's like, "Why did you guys make these weapons?" And Fury points at Thor because of him, and Thor's like, "Wait, what?" It's like I just got here. So it's smart. Another payoff, by the way, when Fury goes to go recruit Cap, and Cap is doing the punching bag thing that you hate. He says to Cap, like, you haven't seen anything like this, and Cap is saying, "No, I think I've seen everything." So Fury says, "I bet you $10 that you haven't." And then once they get onto the helicarrier, without even saying a word, Cap walks up, opens his wallet, takes out $10, gives it to Fury, and then walks away. But there's no dialogue to call attention that this is a callback to what he said earlier. It's just the movie expects you to remember that was said, and that's a payoff that feels good. And this movie, like I said, the movie just is filled with them, and that's why I just think it's so fun, even outside of just the action scenes.
I think another thing that I really enjoyed was how Captain America doesn't get like any of the current event references, and neither does Thor because he's not from there. And then
Right.
there's this one moment where they when they're talking about flying monkeys, and then Thor's like, "What?" And then Captain America's like, "Oh, I get that one. I get that one." He's like so proud of it.
Right.
It's just
Uh,
so funny. There's just so many funny moments.
well, that one where he said, "I get that reference," I literally had to stop and think to myself. I was like, "When did Wizard of Oz come out?" So I was like, "All right, well, I guess they did their homework. I guess
Right.
Cap saw Wizard of Oz before
I was gonna look it
before the
up, but I
war."
was like, I'm just gonna believe it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna trust that they did their research. So no, and like this movie just makes me feel like a kid because it's also something we all dreamed of seeing crossovers in live action of some of our favorite superheroes. Now, the Avengers was never my favorite superhero team; it was always the X-Men. But seeing these characters come together was a dream come true because even though companies like Warner Brothers and DC have all the rights to all their characters, we never saw a live action movie version of Batman and Superman on screen together until 2016. And so it felt like a real accomplishment to see all these characters that had their own movies up and like built up to that point now occupying the same space because that hadn't been done before. And you almost have to ask yourself, how has this never been done before? And Marvel didn't even have the rights to all their characters, so they literally took like their C team. Like these guys were after X-Men and Spider-Man, and they took their C team of characters and turned them into a phenomena, like a global phenomenon, where if you ask anybody who the Avengers are, they know. And if you ask people who their favorite Marvel team is, more people are probably going to say the Avengers than the X-Men now.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Although,
I've
I
seen the thing.
mean, yeah, because like the X-Men movies, I feel like are not really holding up to the Avenger movies, I suppose. But
No.
I guess like it's kind of like it's been built so much. Like it started with
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man, and then it just kind of like grew and grew there, and like for I think it was also the anticipation because they hinted at the end of all these movies that they were going to like get the band together, and you're like, wait, like why else would they have Samuel L. Jackson here for one scene
Mm-hmm.
if not to have something bigger? And when the Avengers finally came out, like there was this huge hype um, for like the first movie, like first live action movie ever, like in this golden age of filmmaking, that we get to have all these characters together, and you have like all these A-listers like all in one movie. Like how do you do that? How do you get all these A-listers in one movie and pay for that?
It's crazy, and then it makes an achievement like Endgame all the more amazing. And yeah, and I think that all of that added, along with the witty dialogue, with the action scenes, with the cool characters, with the acting, the actual actors that they brought in. I think all of it just made it worked. It served to make this movie timeless. And I think some people will disagree, and some people will say that the Avengers movie, when you do go back in like another 10 years, will not be that good because of the fact that we would have had so many things like it since. But I think the fact that it's the first is going to make it always hold a special place in the hearts of those who got to experience it when it came out for the first time in 2012.
Yeah, it's the first of its kind. It's directed and written and story by Joss Whedon. Sorry, a little biased here. And like it's just cool to have like all the characters together. It was in a way innovative. It started a trend because then DC started doing it together with the Justice League um,
Yeah,
and everything.
fast
So
tracking it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunate that it didn't all turn out well for DC, but for this movie though, I will say the things that do detract from my enjoyment of the movie slightly is based off of what we got later, because it's clear that they didn't have the full plan for Thanos and everything in this movie. because the dialogue and the plan doesn't actually track with what Thanos wants to do. So you guys go and watch Avengers Infinity War, but I'm going to talk about Avengers Infinity War and Endgame just briefly. But the plan for Thanos was to get the Infinity Stones. And he wants to get the Infinity Stones so that he can wipe out half of existence. Having Loki go to Earth and get the Tesseract doesn't really accomplish that goal. And even with what they're all saying, they're all talking about you're going to bow down, you're going to be ruled. Like peace is not actually the thing. Like that speech Loki gives at the beginning. Peace is not actually what you want because that's not your nature and things like that. And this is all sounds like he's speaking as if Thanos is speaking through him. And the end of the movie even is them saying to challenge them is to court death, and Thanos smiles almost like he likes the challenge of courting death, which is based on his comic persona of wanting to literally court death. So, but that doesn't track with him wanting to like balance the universe. So that kind of makes it so that you're like, okay, well, this doesn't fully work with what you guys do later since you wanted to get the Infinity Stones. So literally you could just show up, take the Tesseract, and boom, you got the Infinity Stone. Why are you giving Loki an Infinity Stone to get an Infinity Stone? That doesn't really work for your plan. Does that make sense?
I mean, I'm not familiar with the comic, so it roughly made sense to me, having seen Infinity Wars and Endgame. But when I watched it for the third time, or the first time, I was like, what is this? I guess I'll find out later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who that is. Who are they? I guess
Right.
they're coming back later. But
yeah.
sorry, I was gonna change the subject. So if you had anything else.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say is that also like characters change over time. Like I think they forgot that Black Widow's supposed to be Russian as the movies continued. Because at least in this movie she even makes comments in Russian, but that all but disappears by the time you get to Endgame. She might as well be just straight up American. And Captain America though improves after this movie. He gets better, he gets cooler. And then even other little things I can appreciate more after seeing this movie, like watching the Hulk and Thor fight and thinking about Ragnarok makes Thor Ragnarok feel better, and seeing the like Banner and Widow have these interactions makes that love story mean a little bit more to me, even though it doesn't fully run its course by the time the whole thing is done. But yeah, I think isolated, the movie just works as itself with everything leading up to it. But I feel like when you look at the bigger picture, the storyline in the Avengers might not fully work with everything that they did afterwards. Because I think after Avengers is when they really started to figure out where they were going to go that would eventually lead us to Endgame.
Okay, well, since you're talking about what you didn't like, I forgot to add something.
Oh, okay.
It was about the Hulk, because
Is it gonna be I'm always angry?
Yeah, because like if he already knows how to control it, like he can turn the Hulk on and off, then why did he not just turn it off and control himself when he was on the airship?
Because we needed that cool scene of him punching an alien like walrus in the face.
That's not good enough.
It's good enough for me, okay?
It just didn't make sense. I almost like wish that like at the end, instead of him saying like, I'm always angry, like that's my secret, I wish like Tony just like punched him in the face or something and made him turn. That would have been cool. Like, we need the Hulk.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. Yeah, what were we gonna change the subject to, by the way?
That was
You're
what
saying
I
you
was
would change
gonna
it? Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a perfect segue then. Look at that. But yeah, all in all, I don't have much problems with the movie. Like, I don't I joked earlier saying it was a perfect movie. It's not a perfect film, but it's still a really good film as far as fun, and as far as what it meant for that universe. And yeah, the story might not be Shakespeare or anything that's really that deep, but for this movie, the story works. For this movie, their story works, and the stories, because it's also a story that has led up to this point with the previous movies, and it assumes that you've at least seen those prior films, so that you are familiar with these characters, so that they can just jump right in. So
Right. Yeah, as I mentioned, I think that out of all the Avenger movies, all of the Marvel movies, it definitely is the best one, in my opinion. Um, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah
there's some that are like close, but
mhm.
this one was just so entertaining. Like I was just having a good time. I was having a lot of fun, and like I mentioned in our other segment, I I was having a good time right up until the part when the War of New York or the Battle of New York started, because that's when all the problems started springing up. So,
Right.
but like otherwise, like story wise, dialogue wise, like things that we see like visually, there was only exposition where it was absolutely necessary. I hate
Yep.
exposition, like show not tell. And for that reason, I actually really like this movie, despite saying it wasn't that good, because I also don't think it was that good. But yeah,
Mm-mm-mm.
do you have anything else to add?
No, the only thing last thing I want to say is just that I think that the scenes, I think it's the most balanced Marvel film, Avengers film specifically. Avengers Infinity War is my favorite Avengers movie. I think it's the one that's the most fun and the most rewatchable. But this movie is very balanced within with the action and the scenes with just two people in a room. We get a lot of good scenes of just characters interacting that show us who these characters are that we didn't necessarily need to have in this movie because of the fact that these characters already had their own movies for them to for you to get to know them. But we didn't realize that these characters now need to get to know each other, and so he gives us the scenes with Banner and Tony, or Tony and Cap, or Widow and Hawkeye, and they really get moments to just shine so that you get to know who they are, and I think those moments elevate the movie so that by the time you do get to the Battle of New York, I think that's why you noticed all the problems coming up in that moment, at the end of the movie, because then at that point it's like all action, but everything up until that point actually isn't really action. It's like one or two scenes, but it's really focused on character. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so that so many people like the movie, combined with the dialogue.
All right. Well, I think we're way over time now for this segment. So if you don't have anything else to add, I don't have anything else to add.
I'm good. I like how everybody got a shot at Loki. You know, you started off by talking about how you like the swing. Everybody got a lick in on Loki. Tony got a lick in on Loki. Cap got a lick in on Loki. Everybody except for Hawkeye got a lick in on Loki. So, but Hawkeye got robbed, but at least he was in the front, pointed with the arrow when they actually did capture him. But I love how even Widow, because she got a lick in on Loki by outsmarting him. So everybody in the main Avengers cast got to at least get a licking on Loki in some way, and I think that that was amazing. Now I'm now I'm done. Close us out, Cheryl.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for stopping by. If you liked the movie, let us know what you thought. If you didn't like the movie, then watch the other segment we have and agree with me. It's great having everyone here. And so this is I have been Cheryl, and this has
I have been Chris, and we will see you guys next time.